Hello there, welcome to another look at the weekend's weather, next week's weather too, courtesy of Netweather.tv. And of course it's a bank holiday weekend, and of course, as luck would have it, it's not going to be very nice. It looks as if we're going to be swapping bikinis for thermals, if nothing else. Some cold air, some cold weather on its way. Mind you, hasn't the weather been interesting just recently? As I'm sure you've heard by now, April over the United Kingdom as a whole was the wettest on record, and many individual places had their wettest April on record too. And to add to it, as a matter of fact, April was colder than March, and that takes some doing. And on the theme of cold, we are going to get some cold weather coming along in the next day or so. Let's show that by looking at the temperature of the atmosphere. And at the moment, much of the country is under a sort of yellowy shade there, which means temperatures around normal, or even means if we got some sunshine, we could well see it turning out to be reasonably warm for the time of year. But it isn't going to last, because you notice the way that cold air is lurking to the north. That's the blue colour, and that air flows right down from the Arctic, and it's eventually going to plunge southwards across the whole country. And with the shading in the blue there, it's an indication that it's going to be cold enough for snow in the north. Many northern parts of Europe will also turn fairly cool, or particularly Scandinavia. Now, for a change, rather than looking at the large Atlantic pressure field, I thought we'd have a look at the European one, because we can mix in the precipitation, in other words, where it's going to be raining or maybe even snowing. It's the blue blobs that are the rain, and where it's yellowy green, that's the really heavy rain or even maybe thunderstorms. So we start with the old area of low pressure that gave all the problems a few days ago. It's still lurking around. It's there off Spain at the moment. And there's another area of low pressure over Scandinavia. Now that one over Scandinavia is going to intensify, and as a result it's going to be responsible for pulling those cold northerly winds down across the country. Incidentally, if you look south across the continent, you'll notice how many blue blobs and yellowy green blobs there are, and there's going to be a load of heavy rain and lots of thunderstorms there during the course of the next few days and even into next week. And as has been happening recently, some of that European rain might just about reach the southernmost counties, certainly get to the Channel, might just brush the south coast from time to time. But it's not going to move as far north as the previous 2 or 3 did in the last few days. Now, high pressure is going to ridge into the north of the country, so that's going to bring along lighter winds and clearer skies. And that's going to give unseasonably hard frost. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we didn't see a temperature of -6, -9, something like that. So if you've got any tender plants out, I think they're going to get sapped, because they won't be able to stand those sort of temperatures. And I'm sure the garden centres will be very pleased to sell you some replacements. Yes, seriously though, put them in the greenhouse if you can. Now, for a time, high pressure takes over the control of the weather, but it isn't going to be long before a new area of low pressure moves in from the west and begins to deepen, bringing some more rain, some of it quite heavy. And that low in turn follows the track of the previous one and moves on into Scandinavia, and yet another one follows, and it's this one that probably will deepen considerably and bring with it some heavy rain and gales and quite a cold end or middle of the week. So let's have a look at a day-to-day basis for you. As far as Friday is concerned, over much of the country it'll start off damp, misty, murky, grey, rather drizzly too, some rain in places, even some snow over the Scottish hills. Maybe in southeast England and East Anglia, not long before it turns mostly dry, and there could be some bright intervals here too, and it looks as if there'll be some brightness in the west of Scotland. Now, one of those old weather fronts that moved up from the continent is doing an about face and coming southwards again. And so there'll be some longer spells of rain across the north of England and Wales, and that band of rain will move southwards during the day, eventually reaching the south and the southeastern corner after dark. It is going to be a rather cold day. Now on Saturday there'll be further wintry showers in the north of Scotland. There'll be some rain around across southern England too, and there's going to be a strong and cold northeasterly wind. Incidentally, that rain across the south of England will probably die out as time goes on. In between, which is Wales, northern England, Midlands, much of Northern Ireland too, after an early frost it should be a dry day with some sunny intervals. Now on Saturday we've got a couple of events taking place. First of all, we have the Spalding Flower Festival. Well, I sincerely hope the flowers have survived, because there's been an awful lot of battering recently, strong winds and heavy rain. If you're going, wrap up well, because there will be certainly a cold wind, and it does look as if it'll be mostly cloudy. You'll also need to wrap up well for the FA Cup final at Wembley, which of course will be won by Liverpool. On Sunday, again a very frosty start, much of the country by then, but the frost most severe in the north, where we could have some really low temperatures. Otherwise, the more northern parts of the country, dry day with sunny intervals. No, sorry, for England and Wales, a dry day with sunny intervals, whereas the more northern parts of the country, that's Scotland and Northern Ireland, tend to have a few wintry showers. And there still will be that cold wind affecting the more southern parts of the country, so not ideal conditions really. In fact, actually taking place all the way over the weekend and finishing on Sunday is the Shetland Folk Festival. I think it's going to be quite pretty in a way, because it looks as if there'll be a fair bit of snow there, and it will be very cold too. In fact, the snow may well settle, despite the fact that it is May, would you believe. On Monday we start with a touch of frost, local frost, and then cloud and rain will spread into many western and northern areas, some of it turning out to be quite heavy, but the southeastern core of the country should stay dry, although will tend to cloud over. Incidentally, some of that rain will be preceded by snow over the hills in the north, and it's going to again be on the cold side. Tuesday, that last and vigorous area of low pressure shows itself, and it's going to make the whole country during the course of the day become wet and windy. Again, there could well be some snow on the hills in the north. In fact, the rain could be heavy enough for some local flooding, so that's something to watch in the days ahead, certainly when we get closer to the time. If it's necessary, the Met Office will issue some warnings. And it looks like probably rather unsettled conditions. That area of low pressure, as it deepens, it'll move further away, pull in the cold winds from the continent, and after that it does look as if high pressure will come along towards the end of the week, but that means to say again we could see some unseasonable frosts. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the bank holiday weekend despite the weather, and I'll be back again this time next week. Goodbye for now.